As the Alpha Legion spies on board the Raven Guard flagship entered the engineering bay, they hurried to the ship's power core and, accessing the command console, began the lengthy process of overloading it. The tech adepts working nearby demanded they cease what they were doing, but the spies executed all traitors that were nearby. They locked down all entrances to engineering, and soon could hear the repeated banging of the now furious Raven Guard, desperate in their attempts to breach the bulkheads. The console began to flash red as danger showed up on the screen. The cooling system had been deactivated, and the ship's core was slowly reaching critical mass. A warning klaxon began to blare across the speaker systems of the ship, warning of the overload. The bulkheads began to scream with the sound of tearing metal as power fists began to rip their way through. The Raven Guard forces on board finally broke through and stormed in. The Raven Guard demanded for the pair to stop and to reveal who they were. The two spies dropped their weapons and removed their helms, revealing their near-identical faces, shaved bald with piercing eyes. They smiled and said in unison, "We are Alpharius." The ship's core then detonated. The vessel was racked with a series of internal explosions before blowing apart from the inside out, sending metal and rockcrete out into the void, the debris ricocheting off the hull ships in orbit. Having been discovered, the Dark Angels and Raven Guard fleets began to open fire on the Loyalists, destroying many ships in the process. Omegon, the twin Primarch of Alpharius, opened a transmission to his brother and informed him of the situation. Lionel Johnson and Corvus Corax had betrayed them, but the warning came too late. The forces on the surface who had fallen back to their own lines were gunned down by the Dark Angels and Raven Guard. The Loyalist legions were now shattered. Fulgrim was killed. Comrade Kurz was missing. Alpharius reluctantly called for a retreat. Those who could escape did. Only a few Thunderhawk gunships made it off-world, carrying individuals and undermanned squads of the Loyalist legions. They retreated to what ships could take them, and those ships that could fled, jumping into the warp and fleeing towards Terra. As the dust settled and the battlefield finally fell silent, Rogel Dawn smiled. Those Loyalists who survived but couldn't escape vanished into the wilderness. Sanguinius and the now depraved Blood Angels began to feast on the corpses of the dead. Sanguinius himself, giddy from the indulgence of devouring such sweet meat, smeared blood and gene fluid all over his skin like some vile lotion. Rogel Dawn then approached the kneeling form of Ferrus Manus, who was cradling the headless form of Fulgrim. Dawn congratulated Ferrus for being able to put aside the sentimentality, and that there would be time for all of them to weep in future, once they had reclaimed the Imperium from their father's tyranny. He then approached Vulcan and extended his hand. Vulcan took it and they shook wrist to wrist. Dawn praised his brother for seeing the light, and that their actions would be best for humanity. Vulcan couldn't look his brother in the eye, but he demanded to know where Guilliman was. The Lord of Ultramar tried to have him killed, and now he wished to enact justice. Dawn said that it sounded more like revenge, but Vulcan replied that right now, both meant the same thing. A pair of the Pyre Guard carried the limp form of Comrade Kurz. Vulcan informed Rogel Dawn that Kurz could be considered a present, a demonstration of his loyalty to the cause of a better Imperium, for the good of humanity.